Hello, everyone. We are going to do a rather quick but comprehensive review of MagicSchool. This is the late 2025 version. I am on an enterprise version because our school does have a subscription. I'm going to walk you through some of the things I really love, some of the areas I think there might be some slight improvements, but let's get to work. Okay. So beginning in MagicSchool, so in an enterprise model, you will have access to more tools and less limitations. In the free model, you will not have access to everything. You won't have access to student use to the same degree in using the rooms and so on and so forth. So let's start with Magic Tools. So basically the Magic Tools are all just wrappers around an LLM. So in the background, there's either GPT or Gemini or Claude working in the background here. And these are all just custom curated tools that surround a specific task. And there are lots of them. So you can keep scrolling down. You can search through them as well, look through categories of tools. You can create your own, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But these are quite good. They usually are fairly general but specific to a task. Give me one, for example, here, report card comments. When I click on it, there's certain pre sort of designated areas. So you can select grade level, pronouns, strength areas, growth areas, upload files, so on and so forth. But it always puts it out in the same format for that particular prompt. You can customize it to a certain degree. We'll talk about that in a bit. But for the most part, these are all designed for educators who need a specific task done and don't mind that it's done in a more generalized way for that task, right? So it doesn't know exactly the writing feedback that you want to give or your specific style. For that, there is a custom tool. We'll get back to custom tools in a bit. Next is the Raina chatbot. So this is basically the general LLM chatbot for MagicSchool. And a lot of you are probably used to using something like a ChatGPT or Gemini model for this. So this is their own model, and in the background, one of those is working. So you could just prompt this the same way you prompt anything else. It does have, let me move my face a little bit up here so we can see more about it. It does have, there you type in here, whatever you need. There's a microphone. You can use the one that's built into your computer anyway, or you can just select this to start dictating in. There's an attachment to attach files. And then the only thing that's a little bit different here, whereas conventional LLMs will actually figure out how to deal with your task on their own, like whether it needs like a really smart, deep thinking process or if it's something really quick. In the Raina chatbot, you need to tell it what you want. So very quick things are fastest, in-depth, complex tasks are smartest, really deep research is thinking. Usually smartest or fastest is going to meet the needs of most teachers here. You also need to enable web search on or off. So what this means is that if you leave this off, then the task is going to be done only using the internal training data. And if you turn this on, the task might take longer, but it's going to go to the web and it's going to do more research for that task. The little actions button is just to, add some details without actually having to type them in. So you can use this as a tool to, expand upon your prompt. I don't really use this very often, to be honest. Anyways, so that's the standard chatbot. This is where you would head instead of a conventional LLM if you don't have a really defined tool or a defined task that fits into one of their tools. So let's talk a little bit about custom tools. So I think that's a very cool feature, but a slightly sort of misunderstood one. When some of my teachers try to use it, they get a little bit caught up in what tool they want to customize. So here's where I think the confusion begins and how to use it properly. So up here it says create custom tool. When you click on it, it's going to ask you what tool do you want to customize. And you could select one of these conventional tools, or you could just go to a custom chatbot. And I don't think this is highlighted enough, and the importance of it isn't really sort of illustrated. So let's say that you are customizing a lesson plan. So if you're customizing a lesson plan, the output is always going to be a lesson plan. all you're customizing is maybe some slight parameters of the lesson plan, like a formatting thing, or you always want it to include a rubric or something like that, or you always want it to have a certain style. If you want your lesson plan, for example, to include some questions that you can hand out as a quiz, then you shouldn't be building a custom lesson plan, because this custom lesson plan will not do that well because you're asking it to do something other than lesson planning. So you have to think of the custom tool as something where you are customizing a specific tool for a specific task. And if you're doing something that's even slightly different from that task, then you need to go to custom chatbot, which I think could be highlighted a little bit differently. I think that's where the confusion is. If you go to custom chatbot and you customize here, really what you're customizing is the Raina chatbot. So if you need a custom task done that doesn't fit into one of these buckets, then you want to use the custom chatbot. And when you do this, you're going to be able to start from scratch with a customized task. So I think that's where the confusion is. But the custom tool, I think, is incredibly helpful. When you build a custom tool, they will show up in your library. You'll see there's some that we've customized here. Let me go to my collection here, and you'll see some that I made custom. An SEL feedback tool based on our Komochi program, specific spelling practice sheets for teachers who use our lower campus for having students practice spelling words, that sort of stuff. When you create a custom tool, you can share it with other people. You can post it for public use. If you have an enterprise account, so you're an administrator, you can send it out to your entire network so everybody in your school gets that custom tool. So custom tools are quite cool. I use them a lot inside of MagicSchool. All right, let's scroll down and let's talk about student-facing tools. So this is not something you're probably going to use with lower elementary, but for middle school or high school, you might want to give your students access to an AI. So if you have a MagicSchool account, you can do that. So in Magic Student, you'll see these are student-facing tools that are designed to be used by students, not teachers, and that you can let your students use on their end. Okay, so there's a variety of these as far as options go for tools that students can use. Now let's talk about how you have your students use these tools. And I think this is one of the coolest features of MagicSchool for students. So inside the student tools, you also have something called rooms. So watch what happens when I create a room. So if I go create a room, it's going to say, okay, what tool do you want for your room? And you can scroll down and you can say, maybe I want a research assistant. So you are going to have your students do a task where they are doing research for a social studies project. So you will custom create a research assistant tool for use in your room. Now, I won't go through all of this process, but basically what this does is it creates a task-specific AI for your unique sort of use case, and then it assigns it to a room that your students join. And when your students join the rooms, I don't have any here, but there's some that my organization has used. Let me go down here and can show you some of those. All right, rooms. So you'll see some that other teachers have created. So when you create a room, for example, this one, water and biological macromolecules. Okay, that teacher created it and had 32 students join this room. And then that teacher can actually see specifically what they're prompting, the feedback they're getting, and how they're using the AI tool. And the AI tool behaves specifically in the manner that the teacher asked it to. So if you were building a custom room around a research task, you could tell it, don't write the paper for my students, right? You could tell it, just do task XYZ, which is really cool because I think there's a lot of utility in AIs for student use when you can put certain guardrails and parameters on them. So that's what rooms work, how rooms work for student use. And then resources here, yes, leave. For resources, this is basically just, these are, different things that are already made. So you can do sort of curated content for rooms. So the MagicSchool team is making resources that you can deploy for your students. Labs is just beta testing stuff. So, you can go in here and see, hey, I want to be on beta for some of these cool things you're making. I'm not going to go through organization because that's an admin feature, but you can get in here as an admin and see all the stuff in the weeds. Now, one thing I did not really focus on highly enough is that with an enterprise tool like MagicSchool, you don't have to worry about student privacy to the same degree as you do a public facing like ChatGPT or Gemini tool. If you're using something designed for public consumer use and you're putting student data into it, names, specific things about grades, like you are breaking the law. You should never be doing that. So when you have an enterprise tool like this from like MagicSchool or some of the others, when you are putting student data in, the tool on the back end is protecting that data through FERPA or COPPA or whatever applies to your region. So you can feel really safe about having this create an IEP for you or something like that, or email a parent with specific information about their child because all of that data is protected. And that's why I think every school, when they're using an AI tool, should have something that is paid because you want to make sure that student privacy and data is protected. So that's it for MagicSchool. It is very reasonably priced, at least I think so. Depending on how big your school is, it's about $4,000 to $6,000 a year. As of the last time I checked, I think ours is about $4,000 for our student use, and that pricing is based on the student count. So if you are a larger school, say you're like a 7 through 12, but you don't plan on having all of the students using it, you probably don't have to pay for your entire student population. If you know that only grades 9 through 12 are using MagicSchool, you could probably get away with a $4,000 plan. But that pricing changes all the time. I don't know how relevant that still is, but I feel like it's a pretty good value for what it provides for teachers and students. So that's it. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe and get more reviews or helpful educational content. And have a great day.